back for another video, hopefully a little bit of a quick one this week. This week I wanted to talk about pricing your kind of handmade stuff, because I think it can be a bit of a tricky one for a lot of us, because I think it takes a bit of kahunas really to say I've made this and it's worth like this much more than something that's in like an actual proper shop, you know. It is obviously because it's handmade. I still think it can take like a lot of confidence to really value your own stuff, something that you've made. So today I wanted to share with you some of my experiences when it comes to pricing. Got a few points that I wanted to tell you, and I hope they're quite encouraging actually. So I'll crack on anyway. The first little point I wanted to make is that the price of your product is not what sells it. When I first started Parrot and Parsnip, my first project that I had was this drawstring bag, and I decided to price them at £45, which they were worth, and they were lovely. You know, I really loved them. They were finished really nicely and made with individual original vintage fabrics, so they were worth that. However, I put them on Etsy and it was like tumbleweeds, and I was getting possibly like one view if that a day, you know, like basically nothing. And after a while I thought, oh, they're too expensive, they're not selling, because you know they are expensive. So I dropped the price to £35, which was kind of as much as I was comfortable with making them for. I thought, to be honest, I wouldn't make them for any less. Obviously you can probably guess what happened there. Still no views, and I don't really know what I was thinking there, because I didn't have any views. So it wasn't that a lot of people were viewing them and not buying them, in which case, you know, maybe the pricing was wrong. I had no views, so I actually had nothing to go on. I mean, there were many other things that I should have addressed, the pictures, the marketing, everything else, but instead I focused on the price, which was probably the last thing. It's the last thing. You know, people don't search for a price, do they? They search for a product. And in actual fact, rare times when people do search for a price, like for example me with Christmas presents this year, I wanted to get some people some nice handmade mugs from Etsy. Typed in handmade mugs on Etsy, and it came up with initially a load of kind of cheap white mugs that you get your picture printed off and get them back for kind of £4 or something. So I changed the price to be kind of £20 plus. So I think that's probably the only instance when people do search for a price, is when they're trying to cut out all the cheap stuff that's not handmade. But yeah, other than that, people are not searching for a price. So it was actually like a mistake for me to lower my price at that point. Second point I wanted to make when kind of trying to come up with a price for your item is, don't search for your item on Etsy in order to kind of gauge a price, because I did this, for example, with my bum bags. I made some bum bags, thought, right, I'll check on Etsy, and I'll put it kind of where I think mine stands with other people's, you know. First thing I saw was some bum bags that were genuine leather and hand embroidered with all these daisies. They looked cute, and they were £11.99 and I was thinking, I can't compete with that. Like, how can someone make that for £11.99? That's crazy when you even consider fees and all of that. So I was quite downhearted. But then I realised with a little bit more searching that actually the same picture, the same bag, was coming up on a lot of different shops, and obviously it was kind of mass made in China, that either a lot of people were buying and selling, or one person was selling under a lot of different names. I don't know, but either way, not the same as what I was doing. So that's not really, and also you don't know what point everyone's at in their business, whether they've just came on and they maybe underpriced it themselves, you know. Etsy's going to show you a lot of variation of different things, and I think you can just get a little bit downhearted if you see a lot of stuff cheaper than what you can realistically make stuff for. I think at the beginning as well, you've got to be really comfortable with the price you're asking. Kind of brings me on to the next point, which is that you can always change your price. So if you start off probably too low, which I think most of us do, it doesn't really matter at all. And I think actually it's better to have a price that you're comfortable with, because you've just started out, you might not have found the best ways of making things, you might just not have that much confidence, and so to put it at quite a high price, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself. So here's how I priced my bum bags to begin with. I priced them at £35, and my thinking behind that was, after postage and packaging, Etsy fees and materials, they would come up to about £10, and I would then have £25, which I would take as my hourly wage. At the time, I was working like a sewing job for £20 an hour, so I was happy with that. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but you know, I just started. I think it can take a little bit of time and a few sales to start to build confidence, and that's absolutely fine. But I did start to realise that I had not accounted for a lot of costs. So things like the time it took me to package an item, and even to walk down to the post office, the time it took to take pictures of everything and then write the listings, which where I was making each bag, it was all unique, like that was a bit of a drag. Taking pictures for Instagram, taking videos for Instagram, editing the videos, answering people's comments and messages on Instagram. I hadn't accounted for any of that, and that all added up a lot. So I was then starting to feel like, I feel like I'm working a lot and I'm not really feeling like I'm getting paid for that. So really you should keep a tab on how many hours you work during the week doing absolutely any of those things and anything to do with your business. And then say if you'd done 10 hours and you were giving yourself whatever your hourly wage is, let's say 20, because it's easy maths. That means you've got £200 there that you need to then divide by how many items you've made. So let's say I've made 5 bags. They would then be £40 a bag, right? Probably won't, but like you can see like that's probably a better way of coming up with it. £40 actually then plus fees, plus post and packaging, plus materials. So that's how I was pricing my bum bags, at £35, and obviously it was wrong. But my next example hopefully will be quite encouraging for this, because I completely changed my prices and you'll see that it did not affect my sales badly whatsoever. It kind of goes over 2 years. There was one summer, which was the first kind of set of bum bags that I made, and then there was the second summer. So first summer I made about 10 of these bum bags and I priced them at £35 and put them on Etsy. I was kind of probably lucky. I didn't really have an audience. I hadn't started my social media like thing yet. So I didn't really have an audience. I just had Etsy and they were trickling away. I was probably lucky to sell about 1 bum bag a week, which I was actually not, like this wasn't my job yet. So I was pretty happy. Although obviously didn't feel like I was making much money. But over the next few months really, probably until the following spring, those trickled away. In fact, it was the year after my Instagram, I put a lot of effort into that and that really picked up. And the last few bum bags went quite quickly. And then when I was coming to do another batch of bum bags, and I'd had quite a lot of people asking, are you going to make more bum bags at this point? And I was thinking, I am, but then I'm going to be £35, like I can't afford that. So I was slightly concerned. But anyway, I made another 10 bum bags and I'd built an audience, which is the big difference here. And I was going to put them up for £60, which when you compare it to 35, is quite a big leap. So I was thinking, and I didn't like make a post or anything and say, you know, I got my pricing wrong or anything like that. I just thought, I'm going to make them for this, I'm going to put them up for that. And that is kind of the bottom line of how much I'd make them for. So therefore, if they don't sell, that's just a product that I'm not going to do because it doesn't work for me. I put them up one night on Etsy. The following morning, all of them were gone. So you can see there that I found it a lot easier to sell the bum bags, even though they were £60, than the ones that had trickled through at 35. And so that kind of proves to you that it's not the price that sells them. It's very much all down to your marketing and finding an audience and all of those important things. So hopefully that'll encourage you to price things to what they are worth and to know that it's really more important to find an audience, because without that you'll never know if your pricing's right anyway, because you don't have, like I had with the drawstring bags, you don't have anything to gauge it with. If you've not got many eyes on your product, and then that's the reason it's not selling, not the price. And look, when things are handmade, they will always be deemed expensive. They just will, even though you personally probably think they're a really good value because you know how much goes into them. You'll always get people who think that they're really expensive. And I now get a lot of comments saying, you know, I'm going to have to save up for these, or it's a splurge or something like that. Along the lines of they're expensive, I personally think they're really cheap. You see, I still struggle with the pricing, to be honest. I think it's probably quite an ongoing thing. Get it right. Now those kind of comments go with that they know it's worth it, you know? So that's kind of to do with your marketing. It's just making people aware of what they're actually getting for their money. So that was a bit of a quick one, but I hope it's kind of given you a little bit of encouragement that it's okay to start a bit low. Like, you don't have to pick your price. and then stick with it forever and think, oh my God, I can't make these things for that price. It's all right to pick a price that you're comfortable with to begin with. I think you've kind of got to move with your level of confidence, you know, with all of these things in the small business. And as you grow in confidence, your prices can grow with that. And as your audience grows, your prices can grow because you'll get more of a demand for what you're making. As I've told you with the bum bags, like, it's fine to raise your price when you're ready. Yeah, that feels like a really quick one this week. No rambling, hopefully. Hopefully that was kind of helpful. What was I going to talk about next week? I did think, I'm like forgetful Fiona today. But it was something to do with like pricing. Oh, I know what it was. It was like other ways to make money from your business. So whereas I've started making bags and selling them, that was like what I was doing. After a little while I thought, like it's fine, but it was kind of like the same thing with my work where I was self-employed as well. As soon as I stopped, everything stopped. Like if I got ill, everything stopped. So I kind of thought maybe I should think about a few more income things from my business, which I did. And so I'll share a few ideas with you of how you can maybe expand on that as well next week. Okay, thank you. See you next week.